I would just like to ask Professor Naeem, I noticed that at several junctures in your presentation, you emphasize and re-emphasize the whole notion of the human being at the center, the starting point of the religious enterprise. And I'm wondering why you feel that it's so necessary to emphasize that point. If Islam is not the result of human interpretation, what else could it be?
Of course, I mean, that's exactly my position, that it is a result of human interpretation.
But who says that it's other than that? Or who's ever said it's other than that?
Okay. My point is simply to emphasize a point. If people are in agreement with it, alhamdulillah. If they are not, then we can talk. The point is that I think to many Muslims, in my experience, I'm from Sudan. I lived most of my life in various places. And I think in many places, people tend to think of Islam as a given, as something that is out there. And Ebrahim Moosa made the point similar to mine, which is how that he hasn't seen Islam walking down the street. The point is that to say that we are always talking about Muslims, but the point is not necessarily to assume that there is disagreement about this, but to emphasize what follows from this, which is if it is a question of people, then it's a question of history, it's a question of location, it's a question of what else is going on. So that it is always people reacting to events and to their history and their experience and so on. I think if there is agreement on the point, I don't think we need to belabor it. But for those who may not be clear on the point, it's helpful to make it, I think. That's all what I'm saying.
But Professor, I just want to add to Professor, answer Professor Jackson's question. I think there's also a tremendous amount of, lack of religious literacy in Muslim societies that basically internalize these items in the way that it's all a given and it's not a constructed, and it is, and one of the things that really frightened me is when people talk about Islamic law being a sacred law. I don't know when Islamic law became sacred. And then you have undergraduates and graduate students who have nightmares to try to understand Islamic law because they believe that the Quran says you must cut off people's hands, you must flog them, you must do all this kind of stuff, and they feel massively obligated to do that. So I find it also necessary to make this point that it is a construction, a human product, because the general mindset out there is one of sacrality and nothing changes. I think amongst intellectuals we are quite clear about that, but I think in the larger realm, and one of the problems also that I find many non-Muslims have internalized that viewpoint.
Well, yes.
And I think the transmitters of that kind of thing is also Muslim practice. You get a Muslim, getting onto television and talking on CNN, etc. Say, Islam says, the Quran says. You should see how television anchors talk about Islam. Anything that's in the Quran is something that Muslims practice. So I think there's a massive literacy project that needs to be done, both in Muslim majority societies, but also elsewhere.
Just an observation. It seems to me that if we were talking about liberal democracy as secular democracy, I believe at this point in time, at this point in Muslim history, it's out of sync with where many Muslims would be coming from. And that while it might come at the end of the process, it's out of sync now. And the risk is that to just think that one makes a good argument for it and that it sounds something that's very appealing to a lot of people, that argument may be out there and one can make it, but at the end of the day, it's the kind of argument that will go down well in some circles. It will go down well and be stored in a library. But in terms of its ability to be part of a process of change in the near term, that's not going to happen. It may be a step down, it may be more of an end process, but in terms of the practical realities within Muslim societies today and where many Muslims are coming from, I think it would be a conversation at this point among intellectuals.
Can I say something to that?
Yes, and then
because you asked for, I suspect somewhere in that remarks by Professor Esposito. The point is that we don't know how an argument will do until it is made. That is, with the best educated guesses that we have, put out the argument and see what happens. But to say that this is unlikely to succeed, therefore I will not try it, I don't think that has been even the history of Islam itself or of the Prophet's own experience of say, if he said to himself, well, these guys are not likely to listen to what I'm going to say, therefore no point in saying it. But the point is that I think also terms are very difficult and problematic. Secular democracy, secularism, and our time is too short to get into the precise meaning of these terms, even democracy, liberal democracy. So I would like to see that, let's get to what we want to say and see what you think of it. Thank you.